Hi, do you work here?
Sure do.
I got a question about these federal gold medal bullets. I'm a hand loader. Do you think that I can load some rounds that are comparable to these?
Absolutely not. You got as much chance of matching your rounds to those as Bama does beating Georgia coming off a 33-game home win streak at night. No way.
What the fuck? Old Man Taylor coming to you from Outpost Range today. Factory ammo versus hand loads. There's a whole lot of reasons why we may... Got to talk about a mistake that I made. I put this video out about a week before this one, and it got a lot of traction fast. I had over 1,000 views just in the first couple hours. But there was a mistake. When I created the composite groups for the factory loads, I accidentally declicked the center aim point of target number 1, and I ended up with a 15 shot instead of a 20 shot composite. And that's what I ran the video on. That's what the analysis was all based on, was a 15 shot versus a 20, not a fair comparison. And I want to take a minute to appreciate BJJD65 for jumping on the comments and throwing that out there right away. So I shut the video down. There's no way to edit a video once it's on YouTube, so I took it off of YouTube, re-edited everything, fixed it up, and that's what you're watching right now. So if you've seen this video a week ago and it's a little different and I got some different conclusions, that's why. Back to our show as scheduled. Factory ammo versus hand loads. There's a whole lot of reasons why we may say we want reloads versus factory rounds. Is that true today? It certainly was in the past. There are some value dollar figures that are involved. We'll go through that after the range session. But today, while we're at the range, what I want to do is compare some of the very best ammunition that you can buy against some of my hand loads. I've been developing some 169 SMKs in some series prior to this. That's what I'm going to shoot today. What I've chosen to shoot against my 169s today are the federal gold medal match bullets that are running 168 SMKs. These were developed in the late 50s with the 308. These are the exact cartridge that was used at Camp Perry in the very beginning to win. This is what the Marine Corps snipers were carrying before they went to the 175s. This is the gold standard, and it is an outstanding commercial cartridge. So I'm going to shoot these particularly against my 169s at 300 yards to see how they compare. We'll also have a few left over to shoot at 100 yards just to see what that looks like, just for fun. And I think I'll have a couple extra. Maybe we'll shoot a little bit of steel just to see what happens also at 300 yards. I've chosen 300 yards specifically today for a reason. If I shoot at 100 yards, the difference between them is going to be very, very small, and it'll be hard not to argue that's just noise. So I'm going to go to 300 to kind of open up those groups a little bit so we can hopefully see that difference a little bit more. I didn't go farther than that because I don't want my environmentals to become a bigger player than the difference between the two shots. So that's why we chose 300. So to help me accomplish that today, I've invited my Marine Corps buddy, Buck.
Go Dogs.
So other than his taste in football, he is pretty solid. So Buck, why are you here today?
Because I think you might have a bias against your reloads, because I know how much he loves his reloads.
So we may have a blind test need here, and he's probably not wrong. I really want my reloads to win. So even subconsciously, we want to make sure that's not going to happen. So how are we going to do that?
So the way we're going to do that is I'm going to mix and match the different strings of fire. We're going to take different rounds from both the factory as well as the reloads and mix those so that he has no way of seeing what we're loading and when we're loading it.
Okay, so here's what that's going to look like to you. What I'm going to do is shoot 5-shot groups. Then when we're all done, I'm going to take those 5-shot groups and overlay them in the computer and create a 20-shot composite of each. He's going to make sure I don't know what I'm shooting when he hands me a 5-round magazine. So we're going to alternate the magazines. The strings of fire will be all of one type, but there are going to be 8 strings of fire at 300 yards that I don't know which is which. And we're also going to do that on the 100-yard line. It's just going to be some 5-shot groups, but I won't know which is which. He's just going to hand those to me, and it'll be whatever's in there. Seems like a pretty good plan. What do you think?
Let's make it happen.
I like it. See you at the range. Pretty.
Try to be as far forward as you can.
Thank you. All right, this is the 300 Group 1. Recording.
We're recording.
I'm going to have you both.
All right, give you these back.
Same spot left. Exact same spot. Low. I noticed it moving a whole lot. Did I try my gun thing? Okay. Hold on 1 minute. I just want to see something. Hold on. The top of the center dime. So if you put another one in the same spot, you're basically
Thank you, sir.
They're going to be shooting 5.56.
Last one.
Wind looks like it's sitting.
I do so good at that.
I see that rise, it starts picking up. Oh, that was the last one. Thank you.
He just, he'd seen you yesterday, I thought you already went to see it. He was, I apologize for that. When you
Back from the range. I got targets, I got data, we got stuff to talk about. I said I was going to go through cost. We're going to do that. And we're going to talk about some other reasons we might be hand loading other than the targets and the cost. We'll cover that at the end. Let's talk about the range trip itself. Wind started out, nothing at all. And then I started getting some gust to the right. The 3 to 5s, nothing extreme. But I went from a laying flag to some gust and then back to the laying flag throughout the day. And when we look at these targets, we're going to see two very distinct groups, and not because of the ammunition. It happened to both. I've got some that are right, the center of the target, right where I expect, and then I've got another group that's off to the right that persisted throughout the day. That's probably the wind, realistically. Let's look at the targets. And I'll go ahead and start putting these up. The first 4 targets are going to be the factory loads. What did the federal gold medals do on their 5-shot groups? That's what we're looking at. And what we found is 2 of the 4 are under 1 MOA. The other 2 are just barely over 1 MOA, even with that wind. So when I make a 20-shot composite group, which was the whole point, when I put them all together, my composites for the factory loads, now this one includes the 20 shots, not the 15 I errantly put up last week. You're going to see that the MOA is 1.247 for the factory. We can see that the wind carried off some of those shots, off to the right. You can see that little cluster. That's what I was talking about with our wind impacts here. What about the hand loads? What about our reloads? How did they do? Go ahead and put those up. Same 4 targets, 5-shot on each. And we see that they're actually pretty similar. I had one group that was just barely over 1 MOA. The other 3 were sub MOA. And then I overlaid those as well to get our composites. Let's take a look at the reload composite group. What we see here is the MOA is a little bit smaller. I've got a 1.118 MOA group. Same thing, I've got some shots off to the right here in that cluster. Now, one thing to note, one of the reasons I chose the 169 for my long range is the higher BC. There's very high BC on these particular bullets compared to the 168, which means they're less affected by wind, but that spread is showing us we just had some pretty strong gusts, and it wasn't steady. That's why some are farther out than others. Let's talk about velocity. The average velocity for the federal gold medals, and I'll put that information up here too, was 25.58 feet per second out of my 20-inch Tikka CTR barrel. My SD was 15.9. For, in my experience, factory ammo, and I don't shoot much of it, that's pretty good. That was actually a pretty low number. I expected a little bit higher number from factory loads. The extreme spread, fastest to slowest shots, 61 feet per second difference in the 20. These were actually 23 shot groups, by the way. I had 3 extra. I did shoot them at steel. My camera didn't run, so I didn't include that in the range data. But that's why I've got 23 shots on the velocity, which is probably up behind me right now. And I'll put that in the front so you can read it. How about the hand loads? How did velocity go for the hand loads? Significantly quicker, 2664 feet per second. So over 100 feet per second faster on the hand loads, pushing a slightly heavier bullet, the 169s, through the same 20-inch barrel. My standard deviation, 9.8. Not incredibly great for hand loading, significantly better than factory. The extreme spread, 37. Once again, not half, but way under the extreme spread and the SD for the factory. What does that mean? Well, these loads that I've shot, actually I developed for the 1,000-yard line. These are my 1,000-yard target ammunition that I've developed. So I need the higher velocity. I need a better SD. That's really going to cause vertical shift at 1,000 yards dramatically no question, the hand loads outperformed the factory in longer ranges than 300. So we did shoot a little at the 100. Just a couple 5-shot groups is all that I had the ammunition to shoot. How did that do? Well, I shot them in reverse order, reloads first and then factory. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. Buck did a fantastic job of making sure I had no idea what was in the magazine. But I'm going to put them up factory first, just to stay consistent with what we did at the 3. At the 100, got a nice 0.76 MOA, 3/4 inch MOA 5-shot group. Great group. Very happy with that. And the hand load shot a 0.618. Statistically, since it was only a 5-shot group, kind of hard to say for sure that would repeat if we shot 1,000 of both of those. But for what we actually shot, the hand loads did do better. No doubt about it. So what we know at this point, at the 300, our reload shot a little better than our factory. With the SD and the ES, we know if we go longer range, that difference is going to open up and the hand loads are going to do significantly better. We know at the 100, with the small sample that we fired, our reloads actually outperformed the Federals as well. So the point in that whole exercise really was about comparing if I hand tune my cartridges, can I compete or beat the very best I can buy? That was really the whole point. And I chose a very hard standard to beat on purpose. So the range trip showed hand loading might give us a little better performance than even buying the very best that we can buy. What about the cost factor of hand loading? Well, these bullets that I purchased, you might be able to find these a little better. When I go on Federal's website, they're recommending these at like $53 for a box of 20. I did better than that. I actually paid $1.93 a bullet. I got a discount. What did it cost me to load these? Well, nice surprise over the last couple months. Price of primers has come way down. They're about 5.5 cents a piece right now. My projectile, I bought premium projectiles, 169 Sierra Match Kings. They are Sierras. Paid 41 cents a bullet, a projectile. My powder, my N140, that's gone up a lot over the last 5-10 years, but right now it's actually come down a little bit. And I buy it in 8-pound keg, so I get a discount by doing that. My powder was 27 cents per cartridge. And then the brass. Now the brass is one of those kind of hard to put an exact number on. I paid $100 for 100 rounds, basically, of brass, and I'm expecting to be able to fire those, just for math's sake, 10 times. I'm going to be able to fire it more than that, but I don't know how many more. So I generally do that math in 308. I'm not running the maximum load that I can. I am setting my shoulders very gently. I expect to fully get 13, 14, maybe more loadings out of it, but I'm dividing that by 10 to be conservative, and that gives us a dime a piece. So when I add that up, I'm at 84 cents per cartridge against $1.93. That's a significant difference for the very top end, right? That's match versus match. I can even do better if I don't want the absolute very best and just a little bit less performance, but still very good. If I substitute this 169 SMK with a factory second, and I've got a video on doing just exactly that. It's been a while since I've done that, but I did price check, and the prices are still pretty close. The primers have come down. They were about a dime a piece, so take 5 cents off of that, and we're at about 55 cents a cartridge if I pick up range brass and use factory seconds as the projectile and still get pretty dang good performance. So I can make an economy load even cheaper than my premium load, but my premium load is still way cheaper than what I'm buying. What about other cartridges when it comes to cost? Well, I just did this same exercise, didn't do it on video for you. Maybe I will. I just did the same exercise for 223. So I'm shooting 77 SMKs through my bolt gun. And I wanted to do some math on that. What I found was the very cheapest 77 grain ammunition I can buy was Black Hill at the time of this recording anyway. Black Hill for $1.34 a shot. My cost, primers are actually a little cheaper for small primers, 5.2 cents instead of 5.5 or 5.6. My projectile, buying Sierra Match King 77s, 32 cents each. My powder, I'm using less powder, 15 cents each. And my brass is slightly cheaper at 9 cents instead of 10. That gives me 61 cents a shot of match grade 77 grain. Well, how about the cheap? Guess what? I can do the same thing. I can substitute that projectile with a factory second that performs dang near as well, really close. That saves me about a dime, 9 cents, something like that. And if I use range brass, it's going to save me another 9 cents. I'm going to end up at 38 cents a shot for really, really good ammunition. Handgun ammunition, that's a little trickier. Particularly, plinking ammo, even for 223. If you're going to 55 grains and you're just firing through a gas gun to hear them go bang, and you're, trying to hit 2-foot steel at 100 yards, pretty hard to compete with that. We can compete with that, but that gap starts closing down quite a bit. 9mm handgun, I can buy that so inexpensive that by the time I make it, it's going to be a few cents cheaper a shot for sure. But that's all. It's not going to be 30, 40 cents cheaper. It's just too inexpensive to buy really cheap ammo. Once again, I'm not trying to drill bullseyes. I'm just trying to hit steel. If I'm a rapid fire at a piece of metal, 7 yards, something like that, it's going to be hard to beat with that unless I start casting my own. If I cast my own lead, I can definitely beat it. But if I'm buying the projectiles, I can make better ammo. But unless I'm doing some precision target shooting, I may not see that difference very well. Really, the rifle is the place where the money really adds up. What are some other reasons we may want to hand load rather than just better performance and better cost? Well, one other reason is projectile selection. I can choose bullets as a hand loader, projectiles, that I can't buy. They tend to come out and be available for the hand loaders. Competition guys, stuff like that, go after these and kind of demand them. And then later they become some type of factory ammo. Somebody's trying to sell them. I just have better selection there. And the 169s are a great example of that. You couldn't buy a projectile manufactured in 169 until very recently. There's only one that I know of, and they're a hit and miss whether you can even get it. So that's just an example. I can get a lot of projectiles that I just can't buy in completed ammunition form. Another reason, tuning it to your rifle. So if I find that perfect projectile that I like and I shoot it out of my rifle, it just may not perform very well in my particular rifle. Well, as a hand loader, I can change powder and find one that it just works better. And of course, it's a little more controversial. Is there a perfect charge? Is there a perfect seating depth? Some charges, some loads, yes, some no. But I can adjust things. I guess that's my point. I can adjust things to tune that to my rifle and make the projectile I want to use work, or change the projectile and make the powder that I have work. I've got that capability to do things like that. Then there are the odd loads that you just can't buy. I load for the 735 Carcano. I haven't shown any of that on video. I might. I don't know if there's any interest. Put some comments down there if you want to see 735 Carcano, how I go about that mess. Yeah, I haven't made bullets for that since 1939, right? So if I want to shoot that guy, I'm either buying a really old surplus ammunition, or I'm sizing down 308s to 300 or 299. I'm wildcatting, basically fire forming and trimming cases from a parent cartridge up to 308. occasionally I can buy those components. They do come on sale. I've been doing this for 25 years or more for this particular rifle. Sometimes I can buy bullets. They don't work very well because their diameter is not exactly right for my particular rifle. Or I can buy the brass, which doesn't size very well after it's been fired. So it's one of those things. I have the ability as a hand loader to adjust all those things, make my own projectiles for that particular rifle that fit that rifle correctly, and do the same with the brass. Can't buy it. Right? That's one example. Another example is the Wildcat cartridges. So just about every cartridge we shoot at one time was not a SAMI cartridge. It was something that somebody made a reamer and chambered their rifle for and started doing what I'm doing, modifying other things generally to make it work. And that is still going on today. We're seeing a huge influx of new cartridges coming to market. Well, why? Because competition guys have been shooting them for a while and they do really, really well. So someone is trying to bring them to market now, and that's why they're going after the SAMI specifications so that other manufacturers can start making things and it all works together. Well, you can be a part of that. You can wildcat that stuff. Or if you happen to have a rifle that's not a SAMI rifle, you're going to have to wildcat that. So that's another reason why we might get into hand loading. Let's talk about a couple untangibles here. One is, just as a hand loader, I'm going to delve deeper into ballistically what's going on with my projectile, what's happening in my rifle, what's going on with my barrel, my chamber. I'm going to understand ballistics much better just by being saturated in this hobby. And another is, I'm probably going to shoot a great deal more as a hand loader. And that's going to tend to make me a better marksman, that practice that I need on the range. I'm just going to get more of it. So there's just a couple extra untangible points. And the final one is, it's fun. It's a hobby all in its own. Shooting is fun. Making ammunition is fun, and putting them together can really be satisfying. If you're one of those people that you want to hand load for the money alone and not the hobby and the enjoyment and working with your hands and making things isn't in your wheelhouse and you don't really care for it, I don't recommend you do this, honestly. It really does require a lot of attention. It requires you being very specific and purposeful in what you're trying to do. And if you're forcing yourself to do that just to save money, by the time you add up your time, and that's one thing I did not include in any of these costs, my time to develop these loads and make them, you start adding that in there and you're probably upside down. So why don't I include that in my cost? Because I enjoy doing this. And it's something I would do for fun. And it is something I do for fun. So if that's not you, I don't know that this is right for you, to be honest. All right, so there we are with factory versus my hand loads today, the cost of all of that, some reasons to do it. But I'm going to leave you with a final thought here. And that is, if you're interested in hand loading and you haven't started doing that yet, and you're thinking you're going to save a bunch of money because I gave you those numbers and it's pretty dang impressive, I'm going to caution you there. Most hand loaders don't actually save money in the end. That's just the harsh reality of it. Why? The reason is because if I'm going to the range and I'm not hand loading, I'm going to buy a box, maybe 2 boxes of ammo, and I'm taking 40 shots to the range, and that's what I'm going to shoot that day. But if I'm making hand loads, man, I'm probably not making less than 50 at a time, probably closer to 100. And if I've got 100 rounds and I'm going to the range, probably bringing 100 rounds. And guess what? I'm probably not bringing any of them home. So I would have ended up spending about the same. I shot 100 instead of 40, but I shot 100 instead of 40. So my cost, I didn't save anything in the end. That's traditionally how this goes. Now, if you're super disciplined and, I'm just going to shoot 40 today, yeah, you'll win financially. Been doing this a long time. I don't know anyone who does that. No one that hand loads, that goes to the range and shoots the same amount they would have if they would have purchased it. I am Old Man Taylor. Thank you for your time. I might have a blooper or two here at the end. Appreciate you sticking through this video. Hi, do you work here?
Sure do.
I got a question about this really nice ammunition. I'm also a hand loader. Do you think that I can load better rounds than these?
Absolutely not.
Rounds I can buy. No idea. Why do we have a dog barking? We don't normally have a dog barking.